And hello everybody, welcome back to Flight Past. And in today's stream we are going to be talking, continuing our talk on Operation Tonga, but today we'll be talking about the assault on the Merville Battery. And what we're going to do is we can continue where we left off. The other day we were looking at the drop of Lieutenant Colonel Terence Otway and his landing in the drop zone to the north of Varaville. Drop zone Victor, and we showed there how difficult it was to identify the drop zone. And today I thought we'd carry on from there and but look instead to one of his officers in his headquarters called Major George Smith. Let me see if I can find this guy for you. This is Lieutenant Terence Otway, Lieutenant Colonel, sorry, and we are talking this guy here. This is Major George Smith. He's part of the headquarters company of the 9th Parachute Regiment, which was part of the 3rd Parachute Brigade. Under, I believe, Brigadier James Hill. And they're all part of the 6th Airborne Division. He is, this Major George Smith, he is part of something codenamed the Trowbridge Party, and it is a party. There's literally 3 of them in his group, and they're known as the BR Party, which stands for the Battery Reconnaissance Party. There was another party called the Taping Party, and there was also so there were 6 guys, and they flew in an Albemarle aircraft to Normandy in front of the battalion. There was another aircraft as well with another 6 people in it, and these contained the RV party, and they were the rendezvous party. So these are basically Pathfinders and reconnaissance guys. So where we are now, we are flying in my trusted Cessna. This is the English Channel, and we're going to be heading towards Varaville in northern France, which is just to the east of the River Orne. And this is where one of the drop zones was located, called Drop Zone Victor. If you're new to the channel, you can join in with the discussion on Discord. You can see the link in the profile, and just pop along, you can come down, and you'll see D-Day, and you'll see a timeline here, and then you can see all the posts in the forum about what happens at what time on the evening of D-Day. And if you find Tonga or anything saying like Merville, you can click on that, and it will give you basically what I can read out to you here. So George Smith recalls that his RAF Albemarle aircraft, which is a twin-engine sort of medium kind of bomber thing, but it was converted, took off from RAF Harwell, which we discussed in a previous episode, and they took off at about 11 o'clock on the 5th of May. And the interesting thing when you read these guys' diaries is you get a lot of sort of conflicting messages and things. One of them was that he reports that the wind in England was pretty gusty at the time. He recalls that the largest branches of the trees were dancing up and down, so we're talking probably force 5, maybe force 4 or 5, 20 mile an hour winds. But he recalls that the meteorological forecast said that it will be calmer on the Normandy coast. So they didn't really believe this, but they thought they were just being told this to make it sound okay. There is reports that the RAF had decided to take off 9 minutes later than planned because there was anticipated tailwinds over the channel. So presumably this storm has come in, and once it's passed, it's now drawing air down from the north. So now as we're crossing the channel, we have a tailwind behind us. And so the RAF informed them that they were going to be taking off 9 minutes later because they wanted to make sure that they arrived exactly at 20 minutes past midnight on the 6th. So these little details you pick up from people's diaries. He also recalls being a little bit peeved because the RAF had decided, literally, it seems to be literally that day, the reconnaissance photos the RAF had seen had shown enemy dug in positions in the vicinity of where they were going to drop them. And now he says they were aware of these positions, but they didn't think they were being manned. But on the day, the RAF just decided that they weren't going to drop them where they were going to drop them. They'll drop them half a mile further. And he thinks this was something that the RAF shouldn't have been making the decision on, and that it was up to it was a military decision for the guys on the ground. But it seems to be on on D-Day there seems to be some sort of panicking going on. We heard it. You hear about these last-ditch decisions to give the guys these leg packs. Now the British had trained with them, but if you remember, Band of Brothers, they got these bags and they literally hadn't trained with them at all. So there seems to be a bit of panicking going on in the sort of planning stages. He talks about his equipment. We're just approaching the coast here. I'm just going to pause just whilst I just talk about the stuff they're carrying. He's got he talks about his haversack and his respirator. He's also got a pistol, entrenching tool, grenades, rubber gloves. Presumably, I don't know what that's for, but someone might be able to tell me. He's got a torch, binoculars, compass. He reports his map case being overloaded, and in loads of stuff that he thinks is probably unnecessary. He says that the RV party, now presumably maybe they split the RV party up, so they might have 2 RV parties split into the 2 aircraft. Makes kind of sense. And then he has the Battery Reconnaissance in 1 aircraft and the taping party in the other. So he describes the kit that the RV guys have got, and that they were carrying these kit bags strapped to their legs, and these quick release bags, they were on a line. It was like a 20-foot line, dangles beneath them, so it hits the ground and takes the weight off the parachuter's legs. So we're approaching here now. This is we've done this several times now. We'll leave it in the daytime this time, but so we can see the River Orne over there to the right. The beach on the far side is Sword Beach. We got Franceville Plage here on the right, and we've got Carlberg, and you can just make out off the left wingtip the River Deeves estuary. And this is the gap that we're going to fly through here between these 2 towns. And the Merville Battery is it's in this area here, and our drop zone is that sort of light patches of fields here. Now he talks about the preparations for jumping. He says that the navigator informs them that they're approaching the coast, and so they have to open the trap doors. These are doors that are in the Albemarle. It's they're underneath the aircraft. The Albemarle was built by Armstrong Whitworth. It's like a twin engine transport aircraft, basically. Kind of used sometimes in medium bombing. Used a lot for aerial reconnaissance. The Lancaster and the Halifax took over basically the bombing role. The Mosquito was doing the low-level stuff, so this wasn't so much used. But so it was used a lot in insertion flights. It was a aircraft that could slip into a bombing raid. You wouldn't really notice it in a bombing run. You could do a different mission to that. You could use the cover of those bombing runs if they wished. But so it has the hull in the floor, the bomb bay doors, basically. So they're told to get ready. They open these doors, and they talk about how with all the kit bags, normally what these people would do, they would kind of bunny hop down the fuselage and then drop out of the hull. But they had decided that the key factor in this drop was to stay together, and so they kind of all lined up in the hole at the same time, with George Smith in the middle. He's got his two supporting troops with him, and these were Company Sergeant Majors Miller and Harold. He says the coast comes into view. I'll just move it a little, just stop there for a sec. So he says the coast comes into view and they could see the bursts of flame. There's obviously some bombing runs. I think there was some bombing runs around about midnight. And they were targeting the beach defences. And they talk about passing over the coast at 700 feet, and we discussed in previous episodes the height that these guys jumped at, and when you hear the reports, it's always in that sort of range of sort of 600 to 800 feet. 500 feet was considered pretty low. The cloud base was at 2,000 feet. They described when coming across the coast, there's no flak that he could think of remembering, but he could see, with a minute to go, he could see tracer being fired up. He's doesn't remember too much about the tracer and the gunfire. He says he was just concentrating at this moment on the lights, and when the red light comes on, they're given a few seconds before the green comes on, and he jumps they're standing astride the hole basically, and all he has to do is close his legs, hold on to his harness, and then he just drops. And as soon as that happens, then Miller follows, and then followed quickly by Harold.